Have you ever wondered if a single focused thought could literally rewire your biology? Well, welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into something absolutely wild. We're looking at an ancient Chinese practice, a very specific meditation called Jing, and we are going to decode it. But we're not just looking at the traditional philosophy. We're breaking down the mechanics of this practice through the rigorous, modern lenses of anatomy, metabolic function, and even quantum physics. We're going to map out exactly how your subjective intention can physically change your body from the inside out.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the physical Wanjingbu practice itself. Then we'll look at the biology and anatomy, explore the psychological and metabolic shifts, dive deep into the quantum biology connection, and wrap it all up with holistic mind-body integration. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. The Wanjingbu practice, returning vitality to the brain.
So right off the bat, it's absolutely crucial to realize we aren't just talking about a basic relaxation technique here. The traditional Chinese perspective actually draws a direct physical line between our endocrine and sexual energy and the actual health of our brain. Huanjingbu translates roughly to returning sexual vitality to repair the brain. It's a highly targeted, conscious movement of your internal energy.
Okay, so how do you actually do it? The source texts break it down into 3 specific steps. First, you start with a super gentle physical contraction at the base of the body, the hu yin, or perineum for men, and the vaginal opening for women. Next, while breathing naturally, you use your focus to smoothly draw that generated endocrine energy right up your spine, all the way into your head. The old texts literally describe it as visualizing a healing balm washing over the mind. Finally, you just relax. You let that breath and energy, the qi, drop right down into your lower abdomen, known as the dantian. It's basically like you're charging up a massive internal battery.
Moving on to Section 2, Biological and Anatomical Mechanics. Let's see what's actually happening under the skin.
This is where it gets incredibly cool. When the ancients talked about feeling qi moving up their spine, what on earth were they actually feeling? Well, modern physiology points to a really striking parallel. That upward draw of energy, it maps perfectly onto the pathways of our central nervous system, the activation of the vagus nerve, and highly targeted neuroendocrine signaling. You're consciously triggering the body's main communication superhighway, starting right at the pelvic floor and shooting directly up into the cranial nerves.
And get this, the anatomical results of lighting up that superhighway are totally measurable. Consistent practice actually induces neuroplasticity. We're talking physical changes to the brain. Research shows these specific mind-body practices literally thicken the prefrontal cortex and the insular gray matter. That's the real estate in your brain responsible for self-awareness and emotional control. At the same time, it actually shrinks the amygdala. That's your brain's fear and threat center. By beefing up the connection between your prefrontal cortex and your limbic system, you are structurally reinforcing your body's stress response. You are quite literally building a more resilient brain.
All right, Section 3, Psychological and Metabolic Shifts. Let's look at the downstream healing cascade.
Because you see, this anatomical rewiring cascades down into some massive psychological and metabolic shifts. When you change the brain, you change the entire chemical soup of your body. Just look at the contrast. In a typical stress state, you're stuck in sympathetic dominance, that classic fight-or-flight mode. Your cortisol and epinephrine are through the roof, your heart rate is elevated, and your heart rate variability is super low. But getting into the Wanjingbu meditative state physically forces your body into parasympathetic dominance. Cortisol plummets, healing hormones like melatonin surge, your heart rate drops, and your heart rate variability shoots up, which means your heart is becoming incredibly adaptable to stress. You are literally grabbing the gear shift of your autonomic nervous system.
And the metabolic benefits of that shift? They're just massive. The data shows this doesn't just make you feel calm, it completely alters your lipid and glucose metabolism. We're talking decreased LDL, the bad cholesterol, and lower triglycerides, while simultaneously boosting your good HDL cholesterol. It even enhances insulin sensitivity. Plus, by normalizing the HPA axis, which is your central stress response system, you drastically cut down on systemic inflammation. We see huge drops in inflammatory biomarkers like CRP and TNF-alpha. So this isn't just in your head, it is a full-on, whole-body metabolic intervention.
Okay, Section 4, the quantum biology connection, the hardware of living matter.
All right, take a deep breath because we're about to zoom way, way in, past the cells, past the molecules, right down to the subatomic level. Our subjective mental states, our thoughts, our focused intentions, they don't just float around in a vacuum. They are actually transduced or translated into physical, objective biological responses. And the engine powering that incredible translation? It's your mitochondria. The mitochondria inside your cells act like tiny transformers. They take energy from the air you breathe and the food you eat, and they use it to power the complex psychobiological responses that literally create your experience of being human. The scientific literature on this takes it a step further into some truly mind-bending territory. It suggests that quantum jumps might actually represent the elementary particles of consciousness itself. Think about that for a second. In this model, your conscious experience isn't just a byproduct of basic chemical reactions. It is fundamentally rooted in quantum mechanics. Bound state entanglement weaves these tiny moments of consciousness together to form larger structures, creating a sort of fractal hierarchy. It's kind of like pixels on a TV screen. Individually, they're just tiny quantum blips, but entangled together, they create the big, beautiful, cohesive picture of your reality.
What's amazing is how this perfectly bridges thousands of years of human observation. On one hand, ancient texts from Qigong and yoga talk about prana or qi flowing through internal channels to generate a healing light. On the other hand, modern quantum biophysics uses terms like wormhole flux tubes, which are basically microscopic superconducting energy channels, and they document the emission of coherent biophotons. Biophotons are literal particles of light being generated by your cellular DNA. You guys, the ancient sages and today's quantum physicists are describing the exact same physical phenomena, just using a different vocabulary.
So what's the actual mechanism making all this happen? In physics, it's a concept known as symmetry breaking. Imagine a perfectly still, glassy pond. That's a neutral state. Your focused intention is the pebble hitting the water, breaking that symmetry and creating ripples that form an entirely new physical reality. When you sit in Jing meditation and lock in your intention, you're generating structured information in the brain. This coherent electromagnetic energy interacts with the fundamental quantum fields of your body. Through symmetry breaking, it converts that neutral, potential state into a real, subjective physiological experience. Your focused mind is quite literally acting as a quantum sculptor. Finally, let's bring it all together in Section 5, Holistic Mind-Body Integration, Activating Self-Repair. When you align your physical posture, control your breath, and focus your intention this way, Jing meditation provides what quantum theorists call a lossless metabolic energy feed. That basically means energy is transferring perfectly through your system with zero waste, which sounds an awful lot like the ancient concept of qi, doesn't it? This creates something called macro-temporal quantum coherence. It keeps your mind and body perfectly synced up over long periods of time to sustain a really deep state of healing. It is the ultimate bridge connecting the neuroscience of the brain, the physics of the quantum realm, and your everyday physical health. It's essentially an internal technology designed to activate your body's most profound self-repair mechanisms, protecting you all the way down to the cellular level.
So I want to leave you with a final thought to chew on today. Once you realize you aren't just a passive passenger in this life, that you actually possess the conscious ability to govern your own biology, from the quantum level right up through your metabolism and nervous system, how are you going to choose to harness your energy? Thanks so much for diving into this with me. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.